Number 5, Sonic the Hedgehog. This was almost like a sort of cartoon alternative to Star Wars. The sort of things that they fight and the sort of sets that they have these battles on against Dr. Robotnik. And Robotnik himself was genuinely creepy, which is kind of strange because he doesn't look the slightest bit intimidating in the actual video games. Video games adaptations in TV or film generally aren't very good, but on this occasion they got it spot on. The only disappointing thing about it really was Sonic, Robotnik and Tails were the only characters from the video games who appeared in this. Other than that, it really bore no resemblance to the game at all. You had some other characters that were introduced, Princess Sally, Bunny Rabbit, it's a pathetic pun, and this pathetic sort of French guy called Antoine. Never quite understood what the purpose of he was, just found him annoying. This show is of course not to be confused with the completely separate but similarly titled The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, which came out at almost exactly the same time and was made by the same studio. Why does the same studio feel the need to make two cartoons about the same character and release them at the same time? Never understood that. I guess they're so radically different, maybe they wanted to give two different approaches to this character. The sort of wacky approach of The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog and the more serious approach of Sonic the Hedgehog. Number 4, Danger Mouse. This was a very sort of surreal show, and the sort of things that Danger Mouse and Penfold got up to, and the sort of different traps, and the way that things were resolved. They always ended things on a cliffhanger, and the way that the cliffhanger was resolved was almost like sort of taking the piss out of all these superhero shows, because it was so ridiculous how they got out of these traps. This was one of the few British shows to actually be a hit in the USA. I don't really remember much about the villains, except that Duckula was one of them, and he then went and did a spin-off which was equally successful. So I guess maybe you could call this a joint entry for both Danger Mouse and Duckula, because I enjoyed that show as well. Number 3, Chippendales Rescue Rangers. This sort of group of rescue rangers weren't really superheroes in the same way. They were more sort of helping people out, but at the same time they still fought villains, the most prominent of which were Fat Cat and Professor Nimnor. Fat Cat had a very sort of creepy voice. It almost sounded like he was orgasming on every word almost. It was a little scary at times. Nimnor was less, he wasn't quite as competent as a villain as Fat Cat was. Quite understood what his intentions were and what he was doing. There was one episode where he wanted to broadcast over a loudspeaker a terrifying tune or something. There was another one where he was going to charge up a generator with a group of cats and make the city burn or something. Fat Cat, however, was always looking for financial gain of some sort, and he had a cliched sort of gang of wimpy sidekicks that were all very sort of idiotic. One disappointing thing about it is the pilot episode, the two-hour pilot called To the Rescue, was by far the best episode. After that it kind of lost heart. I never quite understood Monterey. He had incredible strength, and yet he was obese at the same time. How does that work? And Zipper, who was a green fly. Is that some sort of pun or something, I wonder? Number 2, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This was a sort of another interesting group of 4 superheroes, which were all equal in many respects. Leonardo was supposed to be the leader, but generally speaking they all seemed to be sort of equally competent at what they were doing and made equal contributions to the plans to defeat Shredder. There was only really one proper villain in this, and that was Shredder, who was assisted by Krang. You got some occasional villains, Baxter Stockman and the Rat King, but Shredder was the villain in pretty much every single episode. You also had April, the Turtles' leader, Splinter. Neither of which were characters I was particularly fond of, really. I never thought they really added enough to the show. I wanted just to watch the Turtles as much as possible. And for years I knew this show as Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. I guess somebody in Europe felt that ninja was too violent a word or something, I don't know. But for years I had no idea it had any other title. Another kind of cool thing about this show was the sort of comic relief that Raphael always offered with his sort of little cheap one-liners, and Michelangelo's sort of more sort of light-hearted approach to things. Michelangelo, I think, was just about everybody's favourite turtle. And my favourite kids' TV show of all time is DuckTales. Another kind of, sort of not exactly hero against villain show. It did have villains, and it did feature the main characters fighting them in quite a lot of the episodes. But it wasn't a sort of superhero kind of way of fighting them. You had the Beagle Boys, more of a sort of realistic sort of intention of villains, and that's to rob banks and gain money. And more often than not, it was robbing Scrooge of his money in this large money bin that he kept all his money in cash for some reason. I never quite understood that. You had his nephews, Huey, Dewey and Louie, and Launchpad. This was his introduction. This recurring gag that Launchpad would always crash his planes. I'm not entirely sure what exactly was the problem. He seemed to be able to fly quite competently most of the time, but from time to time he will just crash, I guess. Landing is his weakness when it comes to flying. I'm not entirely sure who you would say the main characters are. Are they Scrooge or are they his nephews? Maybe perhaps they're sort of equally main. You've got 4 main characters sort of more equally. I couldn't tell you which one of Huey, Dewey and Louie each of the ones are. I assume that they can only ever be identified by what colours they're wearing. One wears red, one wears blue and one wears green. I don't know which is which though. Another thing that you saw in the intro to every single episode is Scrooge diving into his money bin like it's a swimming pool or something. You know, like, how does that work? Money isn't water, it's money, it's completely solid. You would just crash into it, and it's not like water, it doesn't work like that. This also had probably one of the best theme tunes. In fact, all these shows have great theme tunes, and as a treat, I'm just going to treat you to little snippets from the theme tunes to all 10 of these shows. So check out the link on the side to listen to just bits of the theme tunes from all 10 of these shows. There you go, those are my top 10. Just a quick recap for you. Number 10, Sesame Street. Number 9, Fireman Sam. Number 8, Power Rangers. Number 7, Darkwing Duck. Number 6, Spider-Man. Number 5, Sonic the Hedgehog. Number 4, Danger Mouse. And number 3, Chippendale Rescue Rangers. Number 2, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And number 1, DuckTales.